It's like it's way bigger than the Stikine in terms of the amount of water that you run it, but it's also not as wide in many spots. So that creates the most insane whitewater that you'll ever see.
It's not often you get an opportunity to hear from one of the best kayakers in the world today. You won't want to miss today's episode. And be sure to listen to the end to find out about the unique guiding, instructional, and accommodation opportunities that my guest is now offering in Chile and beyond. But before you take that trip to South America, stock up on the latest kayaking gear at Four Corners Riversports. Four Corners is sponsoring today's episode. It helps me keep the podcast up and running. Four Corners Riversports is located in Durango, Colorado. They're a full-service paddle sports retail and rental store. If you're looking to get on the water, look no further than Four Corners Riversports. Call them at 970-259-3893 or visit their website at www.riversports.com. This episode is also sponsored by Taylor Barker with the Group Real Estate Steamboat. I've known and paddled with Taylor for years, and he brings passion to everything he does. Steamboat Springs is a wonderful town with the Yampa River running right through it and has a vibrant and friendly boating community. If you're thinking of making a move to the Steamboat area or purchasing a vacation home, be sure to get in touch with Taylor. He's happy to give you a lay of the land, the real estate market, and help find the perfect property for you. You can reach him at 336-314-4353 or by email at taylor@brokerintheboat.com. You can find those links in the show notes. This podcast is being featured on paddlinglife.com. Paddlinglife.com does a wonderful job of finding all the most interesting happenings in the world of paddling and bringing them straight to you in the form of news, interviews, articles, videos, and more. Check out paddlinglife.com. And now, on to the show.
You know who made it.
So, hello and welcome to Tales from the Crips, a whitewater storytelling podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Cripps. Today, joining me here in Boulder is someone that really needs no introduction, but I'm going to try anyway. Over the last decade, he's proven to be one of the best kayakers in the world, and by some measures, probably the best. He's won races like the North Fork Championship on the Payette, the Stikine event in Austria. He's accomplished first descents all across the world. He's run outrageously huge drops, and not just run them, but done them with such style and ease that it's simply mind-blowing. He's a Red Bull athlete who you might have seen in videos paddling 60-foot waterfalls off a glacier into the ocean, sliding down in his kayak from the top of a snow-capped volcano, or doing a first descent down a remote and epic river in Patagonia. He's brought downstream freestyle tricks to another level. He's largely credited with inventing the Cobra Flip. His solo high water Stikine run will surely go down as one of the greatest accomplishments in whitewater paddling. He and his brother run a program to help introduce underprivileged kids to kayaking. He and his brother also run training, instructional and paddling trips that are open to all. And I'm exceptionally excited and grateful to have him on the show today. Aniol Serrasolses, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here.
Yeah, man, of course. It's nice of you to fly all the way from Chile to Boulder just to do this show. No, what are you up to here in the U.S. right now? Yeah.
Just here for the season. Kind of late this season, but I've had a big surgery in my nose from a previous accident, so I've just been on the mend. I've just been healing for the last few months, and finally here, and gonna get the last remainings of water that I might get, and just happy to be here.
Yeah, that's awesome. She showed me right before this the picture of your injury to your nose. That looked burly. I'm glad you're doing better now.
Yeah, big cut. It's from last May. I was doing some freestyle off Spirit, and I landed one of those Cobra flips, and I kind of landed on my side, and the paddle came back, and that blade just cut me open, and I had two noses. So lots of stitches and super glue, and basically I haven't been able to breathe for a year. So getting the surgery was awesome, and now I'm good.
Well, yeah, man, I'm glad you're back. I'm glad you're here to share some stories, and I'm glad you're here in the U.S. and hopefully you can still get some of the goods while they're left here. I know you've set up home base in Chile now on the Futaleufu.
Yeah, it's been a process. After COVID, or right before COVID, I bought a place down in the Futa, and I was just building my cabin, and then COVID came and messed everything up, and so I just stayed for a while, and I was having some troubles getting into the US, so I took a break for a few years actually. So I mostly made my base there, and it's been great. I just have this epic place at the takeout of the Futa, so I paddle every day. I do a lot of work on construction, building stuff, my campground, finish my cabin, and just go on missions here and there. Patagonia is so sick. You can do many sports, and the kayaking is so good, and the season is really, really long throughout Chile. It's such a long country that you get many little seasons within the season, and it's great. I really love it down there. It's pretty quiet, and sometimes almost too quiet, but it's peaceful. It's good quality life, and epic kayaking, so good for me.
Yeah, I mean, I've only been to a fraction of the places that you have, but I think Futaleufu is my favorite place that I've ever been to paddle. It's just everything about it, you know, not just the river, but the place and the mountains. It's such a cool place.
Yeah, I love that valley. It always feels like home every time I'm away. I'm like stoked to be where I'm at, but always on the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, it's gonna be good going back.
Yeah. Well, speaking of places that you go back to and they're kind of like a second home to you, the Stikine has been a place that you seem to really become attached to and used as a place to train and push limits and everything. Let's talk a little bit about your relationship with the Stikine, how you kind of got introduced to it.
Yeah, it's one of those places on Earth that are just so special. You know, I have this super strong relationship with the place, just like so many others have. You know, I think my first time in there was in 2014, and since then I've just been looking forward to go back as often as possible. I've been in the canyon for, I think I've done 43 laps.
Oh, wow.
So I did the counting the other day. It was like over 100 days in the gorge. So
wow,
it's just such a unique place. I really love spending some part of my summer there, just kayaking every day, seeing places, going on hikes, spending just time in there, and getting to explore and progress my kayaking. It's been such a good teacher on the kayaking itself, but as also a teacher on how I want to live my life, what I really like to do, what am I made of, and every lap, by the time I'm out of there, I feel like I've become a better version of myself in the water, and just like get to know myself more. So it's been such a trip, such a beautiful journey, just knowing the place and getting so much out of it. It's my favorite place.
What do you think it is that gives you that self-reflection or allows you to learn more about yourself?
It's just the remoteness, the solitude. When you go in there by yourself, there's a process behind it of almost forcing yourself to go, because there's always the risk factor of you're dropping into a class 5 river, but you're doing it by yourself. So that adds up the level of risk, obviously. So you need to do a lot of convincing within yourself to actually want to be there, to do it in a smart, efficient, perfect way, no mistakes allowed. So, but the things you get out of that are very powerful, and I love the experience to be sleeping in the middle of that gorge on the side of the canyon and just being there and listening to the river and feeling so alone but so alive, and just powerful experiences. It's hard to explain in a way. It's something you just gotta live it to actually understand fully. And it's great to go in there with your friends too. It's just a different trip. I love them both. To me, it's just about spending time in there and the lessons that I get out of it. So yeah, man, many different ways of doing the kayaking and the trips there, but they are all amazing and they all add up.
Yeah, and that's interesting because it sounds like you have used it in different ways for that kind of like peacefulness and reflection, but also I know like you and Benny Marr have tried to push the limits a little bit and see how fast can you run it,
Yeah.
how can you do more than one lap in a day, like where did that formulation come from?
I guess it's just like as climbers they had the nose and the cap and they try their things there. It was sort of our playground too, and at some point it's not just about just kayaking down, but trying to push yourself on how fast can we do it, how high can we do it, can we do it without portaging for an entire season, and you always push yourself. It's part of all of us athletes, just striving for more, and you are in the process of becoming a better kayaker and a better version. So obviously with all that push, mistakes happen, and I've had my fair share of beat downs and just one swim, but nasty enough to really think about it for the rest of my life and focus on not having to go through that again. But it's all learning. It's all about learning there.
Yeah, I won't make you retell that whole swim story on the Stikine because you did it on the Hammer Factor, which is an awesome story. So if people want to hear it, they can definitely find it on the Hammer Factor.
Yeah, big shout out to Benny Marr for picking up my kayak and and thank you to my parents for signing me up for swimming lessons when I was a kid and water polo. I didn't really like it at the time, but it's become so helpful with my later life kayaking. All my swims are much better because of it.
It's interesting. I see a lot of kayakers that have a strong swimming background. I think it just makes you feel more comfortable and confident in that water.
I think it's very important actually, not just the swimming itself to swim well, but also the stay relaxed through those very shitty situations. I've also done some courses of apnea, just breathing and stuff. It's very important to be able to slow your heartbeat down and just stay calm when everything is super chaotic.
Yeah, that's interesting. Do you still do those practices?
Yeah, just every time I'm swimming or I'm just somewhere with water, always take a second to, all right, how long can I survive underwater? And it's mostly just relax. It's anyone can stay 3 minutes underwater, no problem, just with a little bit of training, even more. Obviously, for us, you're coming out of a bad swim, out of a bad hole, whatever, so you're already tired, so it's not as easy, and you still got to move to be able to get out of there and swim back to shore. But it's something we should train way more, actually.
Yeah, I talked about that with Rolf Kelly. I don't know if you know Rolf. He's kind of a local wild man out here, but we did a podcast episode with it's kind of like about his extreme tubing experience, which is kind of funny. But he talked about like having an incident in New Zealand where he almost died and how it like woke him up to the importance of training for breath holding. And he does a lot of that to prepare for stuff.
Yeah.
I feel like you ought to be giving a shout out to Watershed too, because wasn't that part of the
story?
Yeah,
well, that's a big part. It's when I think back about that experience, just for the ones that haven't heard of it, I was on pass or fail. Maybe it was lap number 6 or 7 from the season. We'd been doing it a lot and no portages. That was the 2016, the season of never portage. So running side set every time. We were on a state of mind. We were really pushing it.
It's amazing.
And just the water level got lower. So suddenly there was a hole in pass or fail that normally was no big deal. And that one time I overboofed and I got stuck. And I was fighting for a long time to get out. Benny was getting out of his boat to get me a rope, but I decided to swim before I was very, very tired. And I managed to get to shore on the left bank, but my boat and everything was gone, and Benny just followed it. So I was stuck by myself on a place that you really have no escapes. And I didn't want to climb because it was hard climbing and I was on the wrong side of the river.
Yeah.
But I did have my dry back, just the classic watershed dry back, not the smallest one, but the mid-size one. So
Oh, yeah.
I don't know, out of somewhere I just thought, okay, let's fill this thing up with air, and you're just gonna go swimming and maybe get all the way to side Z, and then you can get out there. But to get there, there's a lot of rapids. You got Watson's Hole, you got some unnamed rapids that are big. But at the time, I knew it so well that I thought I could make it swimming, just being on the right place, going under holes, and holding my breath well. And so I did. And I ran Watson's on the left line, which is the biggest, but also the safest because you stay away from the walls. And there's some eddies in there that if you get stuck swimming, it's done. You will not be able to swim out of them. You can barely kayak out of them because they are so powerful. And believe it or not, I did so good swimming. I went under holes and stayed on the main flow, avoided the walls, and suddenly maybe a K or two, I found Benny and he had my boat and we had a breakdown and just kept going. And
Dude, that's amazing.
took a little
That is
break.
so early.
Took a little break on side Z where we had our friends and kept going through the afternoon. Maybe it was like 8 p.m. Like it was late in the day. Ran side Z with a breakdown 190 paddle and
No way.
just a different mentality back then. Just so wild.
That's
Thinking back about it, I'm like, probably wouldn't do that. But at the time, it felt like a risky but good choice because we didn't have in reach back then, or we did not. It was like we get in here, we deal with whatever situation. Now it's a lot of people rely on the devices, and it's not really that good either. Like it's good to have it, you should have it, but it's not that you can rely on it to get your ass out of any situation. You need to be able to deal with it with your team, and we did the best we could, but crazy experience.
Yeah, that's one of the more wild stories I've heard, man. I can't imagine the mindset of jumping back in the river there and like, here it goes.
But the reason why I survived that is because I knew the river. I had a knowledge of every corner so well that I was able to stay where I had to and to really predict what was coming. Because swimming, you have no... It's hard to be where you have to because there's boils. It's a big water river. It's not like a little river, so
Sure.
You have to anticipate so much. But knowledge is what gives you the ability to maybe survive things like that.
That's wild. So is that incident, correct me if I'm wrong, but that was before you decided to do this high water solo mission, right?
Yeah, that was in 2016, and I believe the high water season was in 2018. Yeah.
Okay, so you had that in your mind going in there. So can we talk a little bit about that trip that you did? Kind of where you were at that time, what led up to it, how you saw the opportunity.
Well, I feel like it was all a build-up process. Over the years, I only did that was my first solo lap at the highest water level and with the fastest time at the time. So everything got together on that one day. Just went in early season, maybe it was July, with a couple of friends. We did 2 laps, the 400s, everything was great. And then most of those friends left and we had a good rainstorm. So the river went back up to 630 or maybe a little higher. But then we woke up on a morning that was perfectly nice and sunny, and the river read at 620, something like that. So I was like, this is it. This is the perfect opportunity for one day because you've been able to do it before, train up, see that everything's good, and now you get perfect weather, high water, but it's not going to go higher than this. So you're perfect for a one day. And my friend didn't want to go. So I just told him I'd be back later that day, hopefully. And I left and I put on. And I wasn't planning on a record descent. I was just ready for a nice first time soloing at a high flow. So I was very aware of take it easy. But I mean, the river was moving faster than any other time. So even without wanting it, I I was faster than any other time. So it was epic. I ported side Z, but that was really the only thing that I had to portage. Everything else went really good. I kind of stopped on side Z just to build up a paddle leash, because before it I almost felt like my paddle going away, and that's one of the things that worry me the most when doing solo kayaking. Just a slight mistake like that, just losing your paddle, can cost your life.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it was just refreshing my memory. I was watching the video and I saw the paddle leash on there. So that was something you decided mid-run.
Mid-run.
You started this.
I just cut some back bend of my waka. There's some elastic.
Yeah.
Something that I put around my hand and around the paddle, and it was good enough for that time. And it really gives you security. So it's one thing less you got to think about.
Makes a lot of sense for a run like that. Yeah.
Like the things that worry me when I'm soloing and doing crazy stuff like that, it's not only what you can do, but the things you can't control, such as skirt blowing up, paddle breaking, paddle slipping out of your hands. So if you can avoid one of those by, paddling with a leash, it's super welcome. It just gives you one thing less to worry about.
Right.
Because you really depend on yourself, on your decisions, on your quick thinking, on your skills, your knowledge of the run. But there's stuff that it's unpredictable, and the less of that you can have, the better.
When you decided to put on for that run, was there hesitation there? Were you up at night thinking, should I do this? Should I not do this? Or did you just feel confident?
Obviously there was hesitation. It was my first time, so it was something that I wanted to do for a long time, always, really. But I didn't rush it. That was my 27th lap. I was 27 years. So
that's awesome.
I just thought, I'm ready. And
did you have that swim in the back of your mind? Like, if this happens without Benny or somebody there, I'm screwed? Like,
yeah, for sure. But that swim, it was helpful. But I always had respect for that river. The respect didn't come just because of that swim. I always knew what could happen. I know what's in play when you go and you do those things. I've seen people die. I've had friends die. It's always there in the back of your mind. And but yeah, living it yourself and going through the situation definitely, makes things more real. But no, I just felt that I was ready, and it was something that I really wanted to do, and didn't tell anybody. I just went. Only my friend that was there knew, because when you send messages, hey, I'm gonna do this, and you talk with your family, obviously it's something they don't like. It's
sure,
but it adds pressure to you of, hey, I can't fuck up, I can't mess this up. So the less I have to think about and the more I can focus on the actual thing I'm doing, the better.
So that was the first time you soloed the Stikine?
That was the first time, yeah.
Huh.
And since then I've done it many more times. Last season, for instance, I did more solos than laps with people. Just
really?
It's not something that I really look for, but at some point when I see that the season's on, I go, even with friends or without. And this year I was mostly there by myself, and it's pretty crazy just being there on your own for 5-6 laps. It's intense. At some point it's way more tiring to paddle by yourself. There's always that pressure of no mistakes.
Mentally.
Yeah, mentally. But it also it makes you so much stronger. Mindset and allows you to control your nerves and your mind and to really know yourself. Like, you dig deep and you ask many questions.
Did you have any trouble on that first lap, that first high water lap?
No, that was
everything was
really smooth. The flow was great. Not as hard as I thought, because
really?
There were some parts that were really boily, and one rapid that gets really rowdy is Rowdy Flat Water, which is a pretty basic, not that hard rapid. The name, it's Rowdy Flat Water, just very boily and a pinch in the river, so it's pretty tight. But at those flows, it becomes messy. And when you get into that section, after Rowdy Flat Water, you got the Wall 2, You got Sizers, the whole Day Chicago. So if you were to swim on any of those, you are swimming the whole thing. And it's about a couple miles of class 5. So you're maybe surviving that, but most likely you are in deep trouble.
Right.
And it's gorged in, so it's not easy exit. And
do you think you had a heightened focus in there just because you were by yourself? Or do you
Yeah,
think it made a difference? Yeah.
the solo kayaking definitely allows you to get on a different state of concentration. You're just focusing on yourself, on you just focus on what's ahead, and you're not looking back. There's no distractions. There's no talking. There's no relying on anybody. You are in there by yourself, and what you do means everything. So you can't be thinking of negative thoughts or this and that. It's one-man team, and you gotta believe in yourself and stay focused and paddle at the highest level. And normally, the best I ever paddle is by myself because the river demands it. Yeah.
Yeah, I've certainly never soloed anything at that high of a level, but when I have soloed stuff, I find the same experience that you bring a more heightened mental state to it, which is kind of a cool experience to have.
Yeah, it's not like something I recommended. I cannot even justify it, but it's great until you mess up and something happens, and then you're an idiot. But
yeah. Well,
it's extreme sports, it's always like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just last night I was trying to read up on some of that, and I saw there's some Canadian article or something that's still out there on the web where this guy was saying that this was one of the most underrated accomplishments in all of sports. And I guess I'm prejudiced because I'm a kayaker, but I tend to agree with it. But I liked how he made the point of Alex Honnold or something, like when he soloed El Cap or free soloed El Cap, like he practiced for years and years and years, and it's the same, right? Like nothing changes there. It's the same wall, same moves, and he just rehearsed them over and over again to prepare. And he had all of these people watching him and anticipating it. And for you doing this, like you said, it was just I'm not going to tell anybody about it. It's just something I want to do for myself. And then 2, it's just like you don't know, the river's constantly changing. Like there are variables that you can't really control, which I do think raises it to a different level of risk, but also accomplishment, right? The skills that are required to do that.
Yeah, different sports. The one thing, you do have second chances with kayaking a lot of times. All this wingsuit, solo climbing, when they fall, it's done.
That's true.
So there's
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah, but they do have a lot of control on routes that are maybe not that hard. Like Alex Honnold, I'm sure he knew he could do those moves.
Yeah.
He can mess up, but you can get to a state that you're pretty confident. With kayaking, I can control to a certain point. If I was going into side Z, I'm not sure I'm gonna get it 8 times out of 10. I'll probably swim one of those. So yeah, it's they are all crazy sports. Everything's different, but it's epic.
That's cool. Well, on that topic, let's move into fear a little bit, and maybe I can pick your brain on how you deal with fear and risk and all of this stuff, because we were talking a little bit before we started recording, but maybe your mindset's shifted a little bit over the years, but there's certainly a time, and I think by most people's standards, even now, or even running with some of the best kayakers in the world, I'd always hear like, oh yeah, Aniol's like, he's fired up all the time to run this shit when we're not sure about it, which is saying something when you're talking about, you're paddling with Evan Garcia or some of the other, best paddlers in the world. But I know that, everybody feels fear. Like, yeah. I think there are very few people that don't actually feel fear. And if they don't feel fear, they probably don't make it to your level because they're not going to survive. But, you just said like you've known people that have died. You understand the risks. You understand, I know your brother in Mexico had a near-death experience. Mm-hmm. Like what's your calculus when you look at this stuff, when you see a big drop? What are you thinking?
Well, it's been a forever changing process, the person I was when I was 18, it's not the one I am today. I've lived through a lot. I've had injuries. I've had many close calls, and obviously the risk has always been there. But the skills I have now and the knowledge is so much better than what I had back in the day. So I don't think I wasn't feeling fear back then, but I was more stupid. I didn't have the experience, and I made bad calls, just like we all do. And some are lucky enough to survive and progress and learn from them, and other people on their first mistake they die. Call it destiny, call it luck, call it skills. I think it's a mix of everything. But it is a very forgiving sport till it's not. So you gotta be so careful out there.
So true.
And fear, I love having fear. I think it's great, and it keeps me sharp. Without fear, I've met kayakers, especially younger ones, that I was surprised. I was like, how is this kid so chill with the stuff he's doing? And I didn't think that was great, actually. I thought they are too chill. You should be more aware of what's in play. And yeah, it's nice to keep a nice, steady heart rate. Don't get excited, and keep it calm, but you can't be chill about getting trashed on a class 5 continually, or I don't know. Everyone's different, but me, I like that fear. It keeps me concentrated on what I'm doing, and it doesn't really block me. It's all about not getting into panic. Just let that fear come in, really evaluate where you at, the consequences of what you are about to run, how to run safety properly, and just one rapid at a time, and make good calls, get out of there good, and take care of your team.
Can you tell me about like a drop that you were particularly concerned about, that you thought about, decided to finally run, and kind of like what that process was in your mind, and what also just kind of what drives you to do it when you could just walk away and say,
yeah. Well, any big firstie, there's a lot of unknowns. Nobody's done it. There's the line you gotta do, big drops above 90 feet. There's heavy consequences. There's the unknown of, is it really deep? Is it perfect? Am I not seeing something that I should? You're just imagining something and then trying with your life. So there's a lot at stake, and it's your body, it's your future. So those ones are especially nerve-wracking. Somebody's done it, you've got that knowledge, you can see their line, you can correct some mistakes that they did and improve. But firsties are always very special.
It brings to mind that I think it was written up in Kayak Session, the Rio Blanco firstie that you did, where you got helicoptered up the canyon and did that. I think there was one. It sounded like there were some big drops in there, and one of them sounds like you almost got seriously injured, kind of in the middle of nowhere there. Do you think something like that, you probably could have done a portage on it, said like, I don't know, there's too many variables, we're too far out, but you went for it. Like, what are you thinking when you're on a mission like that?
Well, it's those projects that it took you so much effort to get there. It's something you've been dreaming for years. It's most likely the one chance you're gonna get to be on that place and to run as much as possible. And there's a rock in the left side of the landing, but you think you can avoid it. You make your mind, and you have a plan, but suddenly you don't get as far right as you want, and you see yourself dropping into the rock, and you crash against the rock, and I almost broke my arm there. But it's like those little mistakes that they can cost you very high. And I was lucky that I just walked away with a sore forearm, and I didn't break a bone, and I could keep on kayaking. But it's just so special to be on a firstie and getting to discover a new river that nobody's ever paddled, and you definitely want to push it out there. It's once in a lifetime.
Do you ever feel any outside pressure in those situations, that you have sponsors, people have spent a bunch of money to get you there? Like, do you ever feel like I should fire it a little harder because of that, or?
Not that much. I think people think it's worse than what it is. I'm not going to get kicked out because I didn't run the 200-foot of waterfall. It's more of a pressure of stay active, do your job which is promoting the brands you work for, stay active in kayaking, do cool missions, projects, stay sharp out there, come up with good ideas. And I don't think it's a very hard job at all. You just gotta, I've been doing it for a while now, and I just feel like the luckiest person out there to, you know, having been able to spend so many years just traveling and getting money to kayak. It's pretty unreal. But obviously, you gotta stay active, and sometimes it's hard to be out there all the time and scaring yourself, pushing yourself, getting some injuries here and there. That's I guess the hard part.
Yeah. I guess I'm reading a little bit into, you know, what you're saying, but it sounds like a lot of your reasons to push are just like, I have this life, I only live once, and I want to just feel the intensity of life and the experience. Yeah. And when I feel good about my ability, I want to see what I can do with it.
Yeah, in the end, it's pretty simple. If you love something and you actually do love it, and you base your life on doing that thing, it's not an effort. I actually want to be there and doing those things. It's what makes me feel the most alive and happy. And why wouldn't I? When you have the skills and the opportunity to do it, why wouldn't I be in the Stikine by myself and doing all these crazy things and experiences that make me so happy? It's I'd be a fool not to use the opportunity, you know?
Yeah. It's definitely, I feel like it's living life on a different plane than how a lot of people experience it. Right? It's really unique way of experiencing life, I think. Yeah.
It was so random that I got into kayaking. At times I think about it, I'm just like, I could have lived a completely different life, but I just happened to be born in a place that there were some old kayakers. Out of all Catalonia, the driest place out there, my parents decided to move to that little village, and I got lucky that we went riding bikes at school, and my brother wanted to try one day, seeing these kayakers, and we got into it. And I don't know, life is random, and I definitely used the opportunity that I had.
Yeah. No doubt you used the opportunity. Well, you said before you'd share this story. Speaking of accidents, I think it's actually interesting that, you know, there's some, I've kind of experienced this myself, right? There's some things that you go and do something and you're like, yeah, something really could go wrong. This is pretty serious, and, you know, I see the risks. But then oftentimes there's stuff where if you feel like you're in a safe zone, you don't really see the risk, but then something really bad can happen. And you had this incident in Mexico on the Rio, the lower Helsinki, that I'd heard about before because it was such an epic thing. But yeah, can you share that story?
Yeah, this might go down as the biggest screw up in kayaking's history. Not something I'm very proud of, but that just shows that that we all learn, that we all grow, and what we do when we are young doesn't really mean that's all we are, you know. We all progress. So that was experience that we learned so much from. And it was on the lower Halasingo, group of 6, just finishing off a nice week of kayaking in Mexico, paddling Alceseca. And that was our first time on the lower. None of us knew it. We thought Lucky Karacher, our friend who was leading, maybe thought that he did it, but in the end he did not. So he was leading, we were just running the bottom stuff, we were past all the big waterfalls, and we thought, okay, this is chill till the confluence with the Alceseca, and just kind of moving a little too fast, just rallying, and we got to a place where just you can see banana fields pretty flat on the sides and just easy class 2-3 rapids, and all of them just kept going, and me and my friend Juanito, we stopped on an eddy, and I don't know, we were playing with our GoPros, and hey, can you turn mine on, and blah blah blah. Where did they go? Yeah, they just kept on going. Okay, we're right later in the group, you know, so they were already gone, and I was like, okay, I guess it's good. And I peel into the current, and I'm floating down some class 3, and I'm like, oh, there's no eddies, and there's something down there. Oh wow, what is this? And I start to look for eddies to stop, and I'm like, oh, there's nothing. I hope, well, they must know. It must be a chill drop. They all went, and there's no stopping. So I get closer to something that it looks like the river is going to drop, and I'm like, oh my God, I should have stopped here. And suddenly I see black, and I see a huge drop, and I'm like, oh no, this is a portage. I was like, it all happened within seconds, but I was like, oh no, we are dead. This is bad. This is horrible. I got to see the huge wall in front of me and what looked like a large waterfall. And I just, instincts, I lined it up, threw my paddle in the air, tacked, braced for impact, and my last thought was like, you really messed up, you're dead. You're gonna land on rocks, because that's the last thing I saw. And then got very tight, nice position for getting into the landing, and suddenly, boom, soft impact. I didn't feel anything.
No way.
Super soft, and I was expecting death. So I was like, okay, that wasn't that bad, roll up. And I did a hand roll, and I find myself on this cauldron, super boily and dark, and suddenly I see my friend Juanito landing right next to me as I go backwards into another drop with no paddle. And I get messed around a little bit, roll up again, and I find myself in this deep gorge, and I have 4 of my friends swimming. And Juanito's coming swimming as well. Everyone's swimming. The gear is just moving around. Everything has gone downstream. Everyone has the craziest looks in their face. Lucky has a broken helmet, blood all over his face.
Whoa.
Broken shoulders, and everyone's like,
Whoa.
oh my God. And the walls are super polished. We're in the middle of a gorge. There's no escape, and the only thing we can see is another waterfall. And we kind of take a second to assess the situation, and I grab one of the paddles that come floating. Everyone's swimming. There's no way to stand, and there's one rock in the river, and everyone's fighting to stay on that little rock, and it can only hold one person at a time. And the water's cold. It's Mexico, but it's cold water.
Yeah, it is.
So we got to move fast, and I grab a paddle, and I have to run the next drop, even that it looks like shit. And I'm like, okay, I grab 2 ropes, and I ran the next one, and it's really shitty, definitely a portage. And I smash my hands against the wall, all blood, but somehow I make it, and I'm able to climb back up with the 2 ropes and put them 2 together. There's nothing to make an anchor of, so I grab this little tree. And one by one, slowly, one by one, we got them out. Lucky was totally almost unconscious and asking the weirdest questions, and we all survived. Some heavily injured, but from what it could have been, it was nothing. And we ran a 90-footer blind that was definitely a portage, and that no one's ever thought of repeating again, because it looks really, really bad. You wouldn't understand how you survived that, but we did. So
that is crazy. That's amazing that you all got out as well as you did. So basically, the fact that you stayed in your boat might have been what saved the group.
Well,
I mean,
me and my friend Daniel, he had an implosion, but he was able to get back in his boat when we filled it up.
Okay.
When we emptied out, sorry.
But otherwise, everyone would have had to swim that last drop.
Yeah, that was
to get out.
Yeah. No, it wouldn't have ended good. It was one drop that lands on another wall and sketchy undercut on the left. You would never want to run that. It was the last choice we had. Somebody's got to do it. I was like, well, I'm in the boat. Bad luck for me.
That's wild.
But yeah, huge learning from that. After that one, we were so much more careful on. It's good to boat scout, to, you cannot scout every single rapid when you're on a mission out there. Sometimes you just gotta boat scout and move, because there's thousands of rapids, but it's gotta be done on a smart way, and that was not. And we all learned. I've never had that happen ever again. And don't trust your friends so much either. It's like sometimes we do trust each other too much, and it's not good.
In kayaking too, sometimes you end up trusting someone that you just met, right? Like
Yeah.
sometimes it can just be someone you don't even really know, but they know the river, and you end up trusting them around these blind drops, blind corners.
Yeah.
And
Especially if they don't know it themselves.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
that's the thing.
Well, thanks for sharing that, because I know that's probably not your finest moment, but I think
No.
it's good to hear that, you know, everybody makes mistakes,
Oh,
even
yeah.
the best make mistakes, and we always have to be vigilant.
Totally.
Yeah. Well, man, I'd love to move on and talk a little bit about your relationship with Scott Lingren. I've always been amazed by that guy, just the stuff he accomplished in his time. And seems like I've never met him or anything, but he seems like a fascinating character. And of course, Rush Sturgis put out this movie recently,
Yeah.
The River Runner, which was super popular, about
His career as a kayaker, but also about the brain tumor that he was diagnosed with and how it affected him physically and mentally and his recovery from that.
but amazing kind of life trajectory and story. And I know that you were kind of part of his story, in that when he decided to, after being away from whitewater for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
and he decided he wanted to come back, that you and some other people were there helping him along and helping him get back into the sport. Like what's your kind of relationship with Scott? How'd you first meet him and all that?
Well, he was always such a legend. You know, I've always looked at his videos, and I was really inspired. And I think he gives us more credit than what we deserve. We were so stoked that he would be willing to come kayak with us, and we were paddling around Cali, and I knew that he was gonna try to kayak again. I was like, why don't we go on a Upper Cherry Creek trip? And he was, yeah, I'll come with you. And we went with Gail, and we had such a good time, and just sharing stories. And I love meeting older kayakers with different generations, and just speaking with them and hearing their perspectives and their legendary stories. I'm a fan, and yeah, maybe he's 10 years older, more than that. He's older than me for sure, but we had a really good connection, and we became friends instantly. And he's been like this older mentor since. He's got a lot of knowledge, not just on the kayaking, but he's been in the game forever, so he knows about sponsors and just knowledge. And I really enjoy spending time with him and chat and have a good time. And yeah, it was great that we could help in any way. I think he's gone through a lot. Brain tumor, it's a savage thing. And there he is. He's had surgery, and he's been off for a few years without a surgery. So I just hope that just stays like that. And sport, I think it's been a huge part on keeping his health well. He's very healthy. Obviously, he takes really good care of himself. But getting to share the Indus with him, which was the last river that he was missing. From the four rivers that flow out of Mount Kailash.
Right.
And to be able to give him a little help with that, to be able to share that river with him, was, for me, it was a dream. So I'm actually thankful to him for that. Yeah.
That's cool. It sounds like it was mutual.
Yeah.
And you've been on the Indus at least once before, right? Or multiple
Yeah,
times,
I've done it 3 times.
3 times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the greatest rivers in the world.
It looks
One of those places like the Stikine, I always
amazing.
can't stop thinking about it. I want to go back so bad.
Do you find yourself more attracted to big water runs like that?
Yeah, especially now, as years have gone by. I used to be way more into waterfalls and creeky stuff, and now it's all big water. I still enjoy creeks and waterfalls, but not as much. There's always an impact, and when everything flows and you have a perfect line and a soft impact, everything makes sense, and it's so great. It's epic. But whenever a waterfall, it just feels like getting hit by a truck, and it lasts a second and a half, and you drove 2 hours for it. You're like, what am I even doing? Is this even worth it? When I can be on a mission for days, running the cleanest white water on an epic river, it's like,
Yeah.
no comparison. But it's a young man's sport, the waterfall game. I know it's great. I've had my share. I still want to do some big ones, but I'm way more selective with it now.
Yeah, I've seen some amazing stuff in Iceland that you've done. It just looks like incredible waterfalls.
Yeah, Iceland, what an epic place. That's where I would tell to any young kayaker that wants to send it, some big ones and a lot of firsties and epic stuff to be done. That's a good location to go while you're young.
While you're young.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like the impacts probably add up over time, I have to imagine.
Yeah, it's not like skiing where you can have very nice landings. Like you're always landing from vertical, dead to flat.
Yeah.
It can be boily. You get some super soft hits, but
There's a randomness
most
to it
impacts
too, right?
are randomly hard.
Yeah.
Even when you have a good line, sometimes it just the boil is coming up and it hits you and then when you land flat, it's not nice. So.
Yeah. Going back to Scott, what would you say like your biggest takeaway is from him in terms of just like what you've learned from him, spending time with him and paddling with him?
I wish I've learned more of that, but his mindset of dreaming big and going after what he wants, and he really believed in himself, and he managed to pull some epic projects that have never ever been repeated the way he manages all of that, and the expeditions, the vision that he's had, and that's something. It's you just have it or you don't, and he definitely had it, and it's very inspiring. The Sangpo, that's one of the one rivers we all dream about, but none of us had the skills to pull it off, and obviously it's not the kayaking. There's much more you have to navigate, and that's what Scott managed to do, which is
that
epic.
seems like one of his real amazing abilities is like you said, he's obviously an amazing kayaker, but the ability to manage all the logistics, even just dealing with people for something like that, going into foreign countries where they don't necessarily want you around or want to take your money and all that kind of stuff.
A lot of convincing he had to do for that one, and pretty much.
What's the section that they didn't complete below that? The Posangpo, is that what it's called?
I think the Posangpo is the tributary, but there's this section that nobody's done all the way to. You could go all the way to India, and there's some epic stuff there too. But it just Tibet with China, it's a region that I don't even know how. I've tried a little bit, obviously not enough, but all the answers I've got always has been like, think about another river. This is mission impossible. That zone is forbidden.
The politics of it is the difficult, or the real challenging part of just getting in there at this point.
Yeah, besides the river, that then if you actually want to pull it off, like the whole thing without the entire logistics of having 40 porters.
Right.
That's a crazy logistics. If I went into that would not be my approach. It would be like small team, almost no cameras, move fast and efficiently and self-support, if possible. But it's the whole thing. The Tibet being ruled by China, and just they don't want you there. I don't know what are their plans on that area. Obviously, there's a border with India, so that's a zone that is very hard by itself. But also, there are plans in there, whether that be building the biggest dam in history or whatever it is. They don't want tourists messing around in there.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's over. I'll try till I can, till I'm too old for it. But that's the one dream I would love to do. That's my last big dream on kayaking, and I'm like not very certain that I'll be able to. But hey, might as well keep trying.
Do you know much about the whitewater? Like if the politics were to change, do you think the whitewater is doable to complete that section?
Yeah, anything is possible. You might have to portage entire parts that are just impossible.
Sure.
But that's within the plan. But the kayaks are better. The kayakers are better. The skills.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what it is. It's true. And the equipment is lighter. There's possibilities, but it is the stoutest run. the most exposed, the deepest gorge, everything about it is insanely epic. So
Yeah.
that's it.
So transitioning, I wanted to ask you about the Patagonia trip you did. I think most people call it the Triple Crown. I guess you guys had the quadruple crown on it, but it's doing some of the most epic, like big water runs in Patagonia down there. How did that trip come together?
Yeah, it was such a good trip. For people to understand, the Patagonia Triple Crown would be the same as, in Alaska, they have the Triple Crown. Well, not just Alaska, but they have the Stikine, Alsek, and Susitna. So that's the big water Triple Crown up north. And down south, we have Baker, Bravo, and Pascua. So it's 3 epic rivers. The Pascua is one of the biggest rivers I've ever run, and it runs through a very exposed place, like middle of nowhere. It's a big approach to get there. And then you got super high volume white water within a gorge that is like no more than 20 feet wide.
Wow.
So it's the boiliest white water that you'll ever see. And
Compare it to like the Indus or the Stikine or something.
it's
like
like, it's way bigger than the Stikine in terms of the amount of water that you run it. But it's also not as wide in many spots. So that creates the most insane white water that you'll ever see. It's I was paddling an OG and I was getting back-endered on the easiest rapids, and there's a lot of rapids that you just gotta go, and there's a section up top that you just walk all of it because it's impossible. It's about a mile of class 7, just the hole's the size of a stadium. There's no way of surviving it, basically, and you just stand there, and just look at it because that's all you can do. And the weather, it can be good, but it's hard to have good weather. This is Patagonia. You have high winds, and we had bad weather throughout the trip. We kind of had to rush into it because we knew we had a lot of rain coming. So we tried to do the hike in one afternoon, and then you have to paddle for a long time on a lake. So we paddled through the night, and then in the morning we had high winds. We could almost, I'm talking about winds that are next level, that you can barely advance. And by the time you get to the footing of the river, you are already wasted. And back in the day, they used to fly in. You can also take a boat, but there's this route that Team Beer did going over the mountains, and that's what we did too. And it works pretty good, and it's self-support, so it was way cheaper.
Yeah. How long is the hike in that way?
We put on at 1, and we were done by 6 p.m., and then we paddled through the night.
Okay.
But yeah, that was going fast.
Gotcha.
But it works pretty good. You cross some lakes, and it's high. It's steep elevation that you have to gain, but then it just goes down, and it's not very long. But it's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the Baker, it's an all-time classic. It's one of my favorite big water rivers, and absolutely beautiful place. Turquoise water, just so beautiful. It's roadside, so it's a different style. And the Bravo, it's more creaky, but you go through some very deep gorges. It's a really cool place, and we called it the Quad Crown because we added another one, which is the Meyer, which is people look at it and don't think so much about it, but it's great, and it's just as good as the Bravo for sure, and it's got great white water. And
why do you think it gets downplayed?
Because people don't know it, so they don't go in there. There's some stout gorges in there that if you don't know it, it takes time, and a lot of people don't want to take the time to go and discover it and process the lines and learn it. But I think it's an all-time great from Patagonia for sure.
I was looking at the video that's out there. I'll link it, but it looks like you were using some drones to do some scouting on some of those. So.
Yeah, the drone scouting has become a very important part of expeditions. It almost feels like cheating because of what allows you to do. You can be so much more efficient. It won't paddle for you, like. Even if you got drones, you still got to run the white water, but it allows you to make better calls. It allows you to save time, and when doing crazy stuff like that, I'll take any help I can get.
Sure.
The only real goal is to do it and get out alive and well. So why wouldn't you use that technology?
Yeah. Speaking of this guy, Rolf, that I was telling you about, I remember him talking one time about scouting, right? Because some people are just like, oh yeah, I don't, it's the mindset of some people like, I don't want to scout, just tell me where to go. Or, it gets me nervous if I look at it or whatever. And his attitude has always been, which I really like, is it gives me an advantage. So why wouldn't I scout, right? It lets me know what the water's doing, where to go. Like
Totally.
ultimately it gives you an advantage. It seems like it's the same attitude with the drone.
Yeah, and sometimes you will not be able to scout if you don't have a drone, so it definitely, and you can scout miles at a time. So it's not like everything. It's not as good as scouting face to face, but it gives you an idea on what's coming. So you can make better calls ahead of, hey, I should be on that left side and from there we can walk, or you've got an idea. Then you also got to be able to read it well, because sometimes you make mistakes because of the drone. The way you got to see it in the right exposure, or you see too much white and you freak out, you think there's a hole that you can't pass, and it takes a skill. And I don't use it every day, but on heavy missions, it is a tool I like to have. I just use a small one. I have it there. It's epic to get some pictures and filming, but also the scouting is just as important. Yeah.
What was your favorite river of those four on this trip anyway?
Well, I really like that we finally went into the Pascua, because I had been wanting to go for many years, and it's just hard to find someone that wants to go. So that year I teamed up with Benny Marr, Sven Ambler, my friend Ian Salvat. So we had a super small, strong crew. So I was like, obviously we're going to go.
How often does that get run? Does it get run every year or less than that?
Not at all.
Yeah.
It's very few times. Like Ben and Nuria were one of the last ones to go, Team Beer. And then Evan Garcia and all these guys, they tried, but they saw the white water. They had very high water and they decided to go out. So, and then back in the day, I don't know how would they do it. Like Marian and her crew, they did it. She took a nasty swim. And then before then, like Robbie and these guys, that must have been a savage expedition. And I remember that by the time they got out, they were like, I wouldn't recommend anybody going there. There's no point in going there because
really
just nasty. But things have gotten better. Our trip, everything I've heard about that trip before was like, don't go. It's super shitty. It's like scared all the time. You're not even gonna enjoy it. Our trip was different. We
Nice.
actually had a good time, and
That's awesome.
and
Did you have any carnage on the trip?
Yeah, we did. There's like 4 main rapids. Everything else is just very boily. It's like stout boily, whitewater, and boogie. But the big ones, we would do some drone scouting and be like, okay, that's the line we're gonna choose. And then suddenly Sven and Benny were up front, getting stuck on an eddy, getting squirted around. They were on steezes, and it was just survival at its finest. And then there's a place where there's a big hole, river wide hole, and I got stuck on it, but managed to surf out. And then Ian got stuck in it, and he took a swim. But that was the one place that was the greatest to swim because we just recovered everything really fast, and it was all good.
That's good. It pulled up afterwards.
Yeah. So it's not that many epic rapids that you can run, but it's the mission, it's the place, and one of the last big water missions that are up there and not so well known. There's not that much GoPro of it, so you gotta go there and figure it out. So I love that.
Yeah, that sounds incredible.
Yeah,
that's cool, man. Actually, there's one other thing I was gonna ask you about, which was I was looking because I was again last night I was kind of looking up some stuff on give me some reminders of what Aniol's been up to and whatnot, and I think it was maybe on your Kokatat sponsored page you had something that said something like the world is a book, and if you don't travel, you only see one page. And I really like that.
Well, it's not my quote. I just thought it was such a great quote.
Yeah. You got it from somewhere, I guess. But But I wanted to ask you about that because I know it sounds like, you know, one of your loves for kayaking is not just the kayaking, but
Totally.
where it takes you and who you meet and everything. Like, what have you got? What have you learned about life? What have you gleaned that you would not have gotten if you didn't travel and experience all these places?
Well, it gives you perspective and appreciation for how good you had it. I've gone from the most amazing rich countries to some of the poorest, and the opportunity to see how happy people can be with so little makes you go like, okay, I can't be depressed. Just being alive is such a gift. Like the opportunities that you've had in your life, how could you not use that? And just the experience of traveling is just amazing. Getting to meet interesting people and hear their perspective and different ways of seeing life and being more flexible. Like we all got our ideas, but it doesn't mean you're necessarily right. Some ideas have been put into you because of the way they have teach you, but I try to be flexible and keep an open mind, and that's what traveling has done to me. It just keep an open mind, and you can learn from anyone any day, and obviously you don't know it all. Every day I'm like, I know so little. It's like as days go by, I'm like more aware of how little do I know and how much do I want to know. I just want to keep learning, and traveling is a great way to do that. So that's what I get away from it. Just inspired by the people, and the places.
That's really insightful. That's cool. Do you have a cultural encounter that really stands out from your travels?
I really love Pakistan, and I felt like we had such a good connection with the people there. And even if there was a barrier language, and I just knew not too many words, but I spent some time on it just with how little conversations we had, how good friends I've become with those guys. And I don't know, that culture, I really enjoyed it. I think very, very nice people. And I had some solo trips there on the Hunza and would break a kayak, and I would find myself on the middle of a multi-day with no kayak, and these random dudes would stop by and help me out and bring a pot of food out of their village, and we cook food there. And
wow,
yeah, just crazy. So good. Yeah.
It's ironic, I think, that some of the countries, at least in the U.S., that have the worst reputation have some of the, I hear time and time again, they have some of the most friendly, welcoming people.
Yeah, you'd be or I get that comment a lot, like, oh, no, I wouldn't go to Pakistan a lot of times when I'm in the States, and dude, you'd be very surprised. They are super, super welcoming, and with Americans too. Taliban is another thing, but the people, they are great.
Right.
Muslims are good people. They're very, very, they're all about, if you are their guest, they take care of you.
I've heard that so many times. It's just a high level
incredible.
of generosity.
Yeah. Like those people, they had nothing, and they brought some meat and rice, and they cooked a meal for all of us, in the middle of nowhere. So
that's so amazing.
They're great.
That's cool. Well, speaking of generosity, I wanted to talk to you about some of the programs you have going on.
Yeah.
Because I know, and I've actually seen this through various people I've interviewed in the podcast, whether it's like Andre Cotto, who I think you know, right?
Yeah.
And stuff he's trying to do in Costa Rica. Abe Herrera, who's the one that connected me to you. He's done all kinds of stuff in Ecuador, and I'd interviewed Jessie Stone. I don't know if you know her. She writes in Kayak Session, little article and stuff.
I've seen her.
Yeah,
Nice.
and she's done all kinds of amazing stuff in Uganda, and I've really made me love the kayaking culture even more. That all these people are have this impulse to give back, and you have too. You and your brother have set up a program.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about that a little bit?
Well, yeah, that program is, we started in 2018, and we've run editions in Chile, in Peru, in India, and just a couple of weeks ago we were in Costa Rica. And this program, the goal is to help underprivileged kids get into whitewater, help them out with their skills, coaching. We do chats about environment, and it's an all-time course of a week, and we just go to those places where we know those guys are already kayakers. They love the sport, but they might not have the means that most people have. So we get the support from some brands. Kokatat has been extremely helpful.
Oh, really?
So has IR. So they give us some gear.
Very cool.
We bring that gear to them so they can keep it and use it and just give them a hand in any way we can. And 1 week doesn't do that much, but it can do more than you could ever think of. You know, like the impact you can have on someone young when they actually admire you and they respect you, it's very profound. So I'm always blown away, and every time I finish one of those clinics, I'm actually very stoked that I'm able to just take some time off my own and give it to someone, and to see the impact. They are so happy that sometimes I cannot even believe it. I'm like, how can you? But they do, and yeah, they are great kids. They are so humble and respectful, and at that age that they can choose what they want to do with their lives, and the options they might have are not that great. So the river is something that is there. They live on great river destinations, but yeah, we are not all born with the same opportunities. So it's just helping them with a little push and help them find a good way of life, you know?
Yeah.
We don't all need to be rocket science guys, you know? You can learn and live off the river too, and other jobs, doesn't matter, but it's an opportunity, you know?
Yeah, and it can open up lots of connections that do give you opportunities maybe that aren't on the river, right? Do you keep in touch with a lot of those people that you connect with?
Yeah, we keep on chats, and a lot of them, not all of them, obviously, not all of them keep on kayaking forever. Like they all go other way. Some of them go other ways, but there's a few that really make it their life. So it's pretty awesome to see. And now this year I'm gonna give some scholarships to come to Chile and work with us as guides. So it's it's gonna be great.
That's really cool. Yeah, that's a cool way of integrating it with your other program that you have going on.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that a little bit as well. You've got we were just talking about it, right? I know there's some Colorado guys that went and did a trip with you last winter in Chile, and they were super stoked on it. And
yeah,
I always think I don't tend to do that kind of stuff, but sometimes I wonder if I should, because the opportunities in kayaking are crazy compared to most any other sport out there, right? Like if you're a snowboarder and you're like, man, I really want to learn to get good at snowboarding, you don't call up Sean White and be like, hey dude, can you take me on a trip up on the mountain, you know? Like, but in kayaking, you know, now you've got this, and I think, you know, there's a few opportunities here and there where the best people in the sport, you can actually go paddle with them and they can teach you. And like, tell us about the program.
Well, thanks for that.
Yeah.
So obviously the sponsorships and Red Bull sponsorship, all of that at some point is going away. So I started this company that we run trips in Chile and other places in the world. It's a mix of guiding and coaching. So just people come down to Chile, for instance. We do trips in Pucón area, the Claro. We do Futaleufu as well, where we have a very nice campground. And we spend a week, 7 to 8 days, and we kayak every day. You get picked up at the airport. We go straight to the river. We stay in really nice accommodations, and we kayak a lot. And we really are very flexible with levels. We do from class 3 to class 5s. We have trips where the customer picks and choose what they want to do, what rivers they want to paddle, where to stay. We're super flexible. So yeah, it's just all about having a good time, great time in the river, and you know, it's awesome.
So it sounds like anyone that has a role can probably go on a trip like this, and as long as they can paddle some class 3, you can accommodate what they would want to do.
Yeah, totally. Because the rivers in Chile are we've got so many rivers there, and there's all levels, and it's a large country. So the season goes for a long time, and you start with Pucón, and there's some of the sickest rivers in the world. You got the Claro, which is one of those rivers that you should at least do once in your life if you can.
Unique, yeah.
And then all the Pucón area, you've got like 10 rivers that are world class. And then when that season is done, you move down to the Fura, and you've got big water every day. it's dam release, so there's not a day that the river is not running at medium good flows. So it's the perfect playground for learning and training your skills and to run your first waterfall, to learn your booth. And a lot of people, they don't like coaching too much. A lot of kayakers, they don't, but 1 week of coaching can go a long way, just getting rid of some of those bad habits and, just get some help from someone that's been doing this for a long time and getting taken care of in the river. And those trips for people that they don't have a ton of time and they maybe have a week or two of holidays and they want to go somewhere and do not be messing around with renting cars and logistics and losing days with transit stuff. What we do is efficiency. It's you get there, we got your gear, we got all the stuff you need, and we head straight to the river, and you don't stop, and you do as much as you want, and it's great food. And the campground in Futa, it's epic. We live at the takeout. It's the most quiet place, nice beds on platforms on the riverside. So
Nice.
it's a good time, and you can do trips with your friends and just get a private group and have the time of your life. So it's awesome.
That sounds like a sick opportunity.
You gotta come sometime.
Hey, I would like to. I've only been down to Chile once, but it's as good as they say it is. And the Futa is just like, it's my favorite river. That place is just
Yeah.
a beautiful place.
And it's off season, so if you're getting tired of winter, you can do a quick escape.
Great escape
Yeah.
for winter out here in North America.
Nice.
Yeah. And you do provide like instructions if people want, you'll give them tips and how to improve their boating and all of that as well.
There's all these all-inclusive trips, but there's also just a random class, or you can come with your girlfriend. We can take her down on a double kayak, or you can just come and stay in the campground and do your own thing.
Super flexible.
We rent cars. We have like 30 kayaks, all the wakas and piranhas. So just whatever anyone needs, send us a message. We can help. And trying to make a living out of it.
That sounds like a crazy good opportunity for people to do. What you said, you're doing some stuff outside of Chile too? Do you have other locations?
Yeah, I really would like to move to the States. Not full time, but spend more time here, work some, do some instruction, and I think it's such a great place to be. I've thought of moving to Canada, maybe close to the Stikine, but that's one of my crazy ideas that probably not great for family.
Yeah, close to the Stikine means close to nothing, right?
Yeah, it's but yeah, one of those dreams.
Yeah, man, that's cool. So people that might want to do a custom trip or anywhere could get in contact with you, and you could set something up.
Like I'm sure Tim and Rayleigh, they came up with the idea. Hey, we want you to help us with logistics and just guiding us through Chile and giving us a help. And they picked and choose what they wanted to do, and I was just there to support them. It doesn't have to be all inclusive, I'm there for whatever they might need. So.
That's awesome. Yeah. What's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Just our website, wsbriverco.com.
Okay, I'll add that to the show notes as well.
Cool, thank you. And they can send us a message. They can see the trips and all the stuff we do. So thank you.
Yeah, man. Well, thanks so much, Aniol, for coming on, spending a little time with me today. It's super interesting to me. I'm sure lots of people find it super interesting as well. Do you have any parting thoughts? Anything you want to say to the community?
Just really thank you for the opportunity. It's been great chatting with you. And kayaking is such an amazing sport. We're really, very, very lucky to do it. And very highs, big lows. So gotta stay aware of what's in play out there and have a good time, enjoy it, but also be careful and take care of your people and in it for the long run, like the best kayakers manage to get to an old age, and that's how I want to keep it. Stay sharp, stay clean.
I had a great time talking to Aniol, and everything I heard about him being an exceptionally kind and gracious person rang true for me. If you're interested in using his guiding and or instructional services, his company is called Serrasolses Brothers River Company, and his website is sbriverco.com, and you can find the link in the show notes. He's offering anything from simply renting accommodations along the river to customized river trips to full service, all-inclusive guiding and instruction services. If you enjoyed the show today, share it with a friend, give it a rating on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, and thank you for listening.